So fancy. Okay, so I'm excited to welcome Victoria Miretti. She is a certified dating and relationship coach in New York. And she helps women find love and thrive in relationships through self-discovery. And we're going to have her talk about all of her things, but she does work with clients one-on-one in her Most Authentic You dating coaching program. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Leanna. Thank you, Jared. Really appreciate you guys inviting me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So I want to give the listeners a little background of how I found you and what we're going to kind of be talking about today. But
yeah,
I've been talking kind of about a little bit about this on the podcast, but mostly with Jared, about how I've been having I made a post on Instagram that says, it was a meme that I made on Twitter, and it says, why are guys in relationships more into me than single guys? Legitimately asking because I'd prefer to date someone who isn't fucking someone else. And it was like, meant as like a joke, but also like it's true. Right. And in the comment below, it was like, please, experts, help me out here. And I got a ton of comments, some people who have been on the podcast that we love. And you commented, and I really, really connected with what you had to say. And I think it's an interesting topic that maybe doesn't get talked about a lot because it's a little taboo. Even admitting that you're attracting unavailable people. Right. So that's kind of like why you're here, and we're going to talk about and explore that idea. But first, I want you to just tell us who you are and like how you got into this business.
Yeah. So I'm a dating and relationship coach. I got into this business because I myself struggled with this. I myself was attracting emotionally unavailable partners, and I had no idea why. Even when I did this work, I was like, no way. I was working every single day to try to find my guy. I desperately wanted to find love. And, when I figured this out, it was literally mind blowing, right? Because it just felt so backwards to me, but it's literally the stuff, the thing that made me realize what I was doing to attract what I was attracting in my love life. And once I was able to work through that and heal that, I started just attracting higher quality partners. And so, I was single in Manhattan for literally 7 years, literally dating Peter Pan after Peter Pan, attracting the most unavailable men ever. And I was enough, right? I was so sick of it. It was not worth for me to experience what I was experiencing in my dating life for one more year. So I was okay, I'm going to walk the walk. I can't complain about my dating life if I'm not willing to change something and figure out why I'm attracting what it is that I'm attracting. And so I got coached and I did this work, and I realized as soon as I cleared this stuff up, I just started attracting higher quality partners. And I realized, oh my God, no one should have to be single for 7 years. There is a simpler way. And so that's why I got into this, to say, I need to share these tools with everyone I know, with anyone who might be experiencing the same thing that I did, so that they can find love in their life too, right? It can be simpler.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I'm also really curious about what those tools
are.
And
we don't want to ask you to give away your secret
sauce. Yeah. You don't have to give us a coaching session.
But I'm also so if you can talk about what were the things that were holding you back, and maybe, not necessarily and kind of what it was like from before to after.
Yeah, so I can absolutely talk about the tools. Yeah, so I guess a couple questions there. Let me start with maybe what was holding me back, right? And so what I realized that there was 10 different things, right? That was really contributing to me attracting what I was attracting. And it was a whole list of things, right? It was limiting beliefs. I had inner children that were getting caught up in different patterns, right? Default patterns and cycles, right? Even from my childhood or previous relationships that kept kind of playing out. Things I was an anxious attachment style, right? I was like very driven in my career. So I was also bringing out like a lot of masculine energy that was like repelling like men. What else? I mean, I had issues with boundaries. Like, one of the biggest things that I learned through this work is like men really value what they earn, right? Like they like women who are decisive, who know what they want, who know what they don't want, right? And can articulate that in like a simple, direct manner. And, I had a lot of issues of like with my self-worth, right? And like trying to be like the cool girl that just kind of goes with the flow and not really articulating what I needed and what I wanted and like what I didn't want, right? In that dating process. And like once I realized all of this, right, and put it all together, and once I was able to kind of, be in front of a guy saying like, no, I don't want to do that, right? Or whatever it might have been, then all of a sudden, like men like saw that like, oh, she knows she's worthy, right? Like she knows she's worth it. And like, I want to be like men like a challenge too, right? So they're like, I want to be that person that can show up for them. So for me, it was like a whole host of different things. And obviously like communication too. I didn't have the skills, right? But when I did this work, right, like I uncovered all my blind spots, right? Because intellectually, I knew some things that I was like doing that were wrong, but I just kind of kept doing them over and over. But it was very like surface level. It was like when the stakes were high, like I still defaulted into my patterns, right? Like when you really, really like someone, right? Or when things really kind of get fuzzy, you kind of just like default into your ways, right? And so the tools that actually worked for me is to use like these science-backed tools that can actually like reroute your neural pathways, right? So once I uncovered all my blocks, like, and for instance, like inner children, right? I did the work and like incorporated somatics to heal that and transform that energy into something new and healthy, and that was going to support what I wanted to attract in my love life, right? So, even if it's like a limiting belief, right? If you just tell yourself, don't believe that, but then you don't know what to believe, when you're in a scary situation, you're just going to default back to like the thing you thought before, because there was nothing there to really replace it, right? And so I use these science-backed tools to kind of like reroute your neural pathways to a new, healthier way, right? But you can't do that unless you understand what it is and why, right? And so, a lot of like coaching work is to go forward, to get you into what you want, right? But in order to do that, like if you're exhibiting all these like default patterns, it's like, I need to understand why you're doing it. Like, where did it start? Was it from your childhood? Was it from past relationships, right? We uncover that energy that's kind of like embedded in our bodies, right? And blocked and kind of like lodged there. We find out why that happened, what you really needed at that time, and start kind of giving those like inner children love and validation so that they can properly heal, right? So that there's not so much energy when they feel like they're in like similar situations, right? In current day that like remind them of like their past, stuff that came up and where they were really hurt, or they kind of created this identity where they thought, oh, like this happened this certain way, so I guess I need to be this or do this to get love, right? Or get validation or whatever it was. And so I really do kind of the healing work with my clients so that we can work through that and then start developing these healthier patterns that are really going to attract what they actually want in their love life. Because otherwise it's like these inner children, right? Like, let's say it's one inner child that developed when they were 11. It's essentially like saying this 11-year-old is dictating your love life and like attracting like the people that they want to attract if you don't solve this stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. So just wanted to give you a little bit of the flavor of like kind of what goes into this work. Right. But that's kind of the tools. Right. And that goes into kind of resolving some of all of that stuff, right? That has really been developing and blocking us from attracting what we want.
Yeah, there's so much to like unpack.
I
And
knew
get
you
into.
were. I knew you
lot,
wanted
right?
to
Sorry.
go first. I knew you would want to go first.
Thank you, friend. Well, and so, when our listeners are like familiar with like inner child work, right? And like
and attachment style.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, we did an episode about like trauma, right? And the book we drew a lot from is like The Body Keeps the Score, right?
Yep,
and so,
great book. Mm-hmm.
What happened, when you talk about that, I think it's so beneficial to recognize that when we're wounded in our young lives, like some part of us is still back there.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you're saying, like when you're under threat or you perceive you're under threat, like that part sort of takes over and your kind of logical adult brain goes offline.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really curious, because, right, the body keeps the score, and you talked about somatics, right, which is kind of getting into the body related stuff of, that sort of manifests as this inner child, like these inner child responses. By the way, I've never heard the phrase inner children. So I'm like, how many kids are in there? Like, did you take on the neighbors stuff too? Or like,
I mean, I've been doing this work for years and I still uncover new ones, right? And some might not have so much energy like other ones, right? But every time you have an experience that really kind of changes the way you show up, right? I mean, every one of those events can create a new inner child, right? That's kind of the way that I think about it, because a lot of times it's a whole host of different things that goes into why we're showing up the way we are.
Yeah. And it can be like these younger experiences of rejection, of not getting your needs met, of somebody sort of making you feel small, or making you feel like your needs are too much, or making you feel guilty for not meeting their needs, or, and these are the kinds of things that get lodged. And so when you talk about somatics, I'm curious if you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. And I really love that you brought up the word trauma, because when I say trauma, I feel like it maybe not scares off a lot of people, but they say, oh, that's not me. Like I haven't had this like huge traumatic thing in my life. Right. So that must not be what's going on for me. Right. But it doesn't have to be like these huge events. Right. I call it like little traumas with like a little T. Right. It's like these like really small events that compile into why, like, you're showing up the way that you are. And so one of the things I do with my clients is to say, okay, take me to like, what you're struggling with, or maybe one person that like you really, really liked, and, something happened and, it didn't go the way that you wanted. Take me back to that. What were you feeling in that moment? What is it that you were seeking, that you wanted, right? And where did you feel it in your body, right? And that kind of gives us a clue into like where that energy is stored. And so I can do the work with them to then say, okay, how far back in your life do you remember having that same kind of experience, right? And having that same sensation. And like, of course, I said it really simply right here, right? But it's like really getting them into that energy, where then like it just starts coming back to them, like where they felt it first. And then when we do that, we can start unraveling what that inner child needed at that time, what they were seeking, and start healing that. Because once we heal that, then all this kind of goes away. And you can just kind of start calming the nervous system, right? In those moments when you remind yourself like, okay, I'm okay. This is, just the inner child that, wanted to be loved when she was 5, right? From her parents. And, I've got her, right? Like she's safe. She can trust me. Like I've got it from here. Like I know that she's just alarming the sound bells, right? Because this feels familiar and it feels scary. And she doesn't want me to get hurt again, right? How she remembers to be hurt in the past, right? And so she she wants you to do certain things just to keep you safe, but those things aren't really those things that are going to support you to go after what you want in your life, and especially in your love life, right? And so that you can do that work to start calming down that inner child once it comes up, to say like, hey, I got you, you know?
Yeah, well, go.
Like, you could take over this whole interview.
No, go.
So Victoria, my frustration with all of this is, and our listeners are very well aware of my entire journey here, but I feel like I've fucking done all of this. Like I've done all of it. Like I've, you know, I know I've been in therapy for 5 years. I know exactly why my inner child gets hurt. I know how to soothe her. I have paid a shit ton of money to do a coaching program. I know how to, you know, rewire my brain with positive affirmations, and how to try and, you know, manage and soothe my anxious attachment style. And I am still attracting unavailable men. Yeah. And I am so tired. Like I'm so tired, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I was also in therapy before I did this work, you know, and I thought I was like clearing up all the stuff, right? Like, okay, now I got this, right? But until I did this work with like a dating coach who understood like how it comes about in the dating world, like I didn't fully kind of latch on to like healing all the way, right? So one of the things that I teach in my program is like, a lot of it is like who you're being, right? And the energy that you're essentially like broadcasting out into the universe, right? So like if I'm out on a date, right? And let's say like, I really like a guy, like they're saying all the right things, like they're doing all the right things, but like there's like something weird about it. Like I just can't put my finger on it, but like I'm getting rubbed the wrong way. And I don't know why, because they're saying all the right things, right? Like that's because of like the energy that they're putting out on the date, right? And so for instance, like I'll just give an example. Like if I think, let's say like I was really hurt in a past relationship, excuse me, and I was cheated on, right? And like intellectually, I know that I can trust men. There are good guys out there, right? And I believe that like 95% of the time, but like 5% of the time, I'm still like bracing. So I'm like, wait, but what if this guy is the one that's going to hurt me again, right? Like that 5% is still being broadcasted out into the universe, like on your dates and all of your interactions, right? And so you can start like kind of tearing away at this and like doing the work, right? But if you still have that kind of like underlying fear, like it's still coming through and it's still like repelling the good guys and like attracting the bad guys. Not only that, but like, so when I did a lot of this work, it was kind of a culmination of a lot of different factors, right? So there was a part of me that was attracting unavailable men because I had this inner child that basically created a story that I wasn't lovable. And so that from then on, I started attracting unavailable men. Not only that, but then I got so used to kind of like the drama, right? Like, because I was only interacting with unavailable men, there was always this like hurdle to say like, wait, like I need to prove myself that I'm worthy and that I'm lovable before I could be loved. And I essentially like internalized that is love, right? Like there has to be this hurdle. And I got like addicted to this like drama, right? And so whenever I was confronted with a guy who's like healthy and stable, I just thought there's no chemistry, right? It's too boring. It's too easy, right? And it's not that like, oh, I wanted a challenge. It was like, oh, I guess we're not a right fit because there's like not chemistry here, right? So like, I'm not saying this is what it is for you, but like just trying to give you a few different flavors of like, for me, it was like, you know, I didn't fully put down all of my walls to say, okay, if I know that a lot of our chemistry really is dictated by our previous kind of functioning, right? Then if I have an instant connection with someone, sometimes that isn't necessarily a good thing, right? Like, oh, we might just have like similar childhood dynamics that like resonate, right? And like we remind each other of like, a previous identity in our life or an opposite identity in our life, right? That's really attracting that. So once I realized like, oh, okay, I have chemistry with this person, but that doesn't mean that we're like compatible for the long run, right? So then I could like start like saying, okay, I'm still going to like get to know this person, but I'm going to make sure they also have values and the qualities that I'm looking for in a guy to make sure that we like establish a good foundation and connection for the long haul. Mm-hmm. And then men that I like wasn't instantly attracted to, I was like, okay, let me just be curious and see if there's something there, right? Because that chemistry can develop. And it was like, okay, even if, maybe I had a good time on the first date, but there wasn't like an instant fire, like giving them a second date or giving them a third date to see if it could develop. And that's when I started kind of finding the good guys that were really like a good match for me. So I don't know what it is for you, Leanna, but there could be a whole host of things, right, that are kind of going on that are kind of like mixing together, right?
It would be interesting to like reach out to these past guys and be like, what energy was I putting off? Like, what did you get from me?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of that is true for me of I am sorry. Like, I think I'm just so hurt.
Yeah.
And it was just like hurt by hurt. Totally. But I can't get out of that right now. So like, I'm trying, like I took, some time off and I'm trying, but I can't seem to shake, I don't know. I just don't, it makes me just not want to date really.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. I mean, honestly, I remember that feeling like dating and being like, I'm doing all the things, I'm doing all the stuff, right? And like constantly coming up against the same issue and over again and feeling like, what am I doing wrong? Like, like feeling it's like there's something wrong in you when absolutely that's not right. But it's like, well, what else could it be? Because I've like tried to overturn every rock that I found, right? And like, it makes total sense to like feel some kind of way when like you keep putting yourself out there every single day and still getting the same result, right? So I can totally empathize with that. And like that's how all my clients, right, come in and say like, I've thought of everything. So, all right, like finally, like, let's try something new, right? And a lot of times it's just that like one little thing, right? It's like that 5% that's really going to get you over the hurdle. And all of a sudden you clear the way to like, I did this work and I was like dumbfounded. I was like, in that like last notch, which was for me was like boundaries. And then it was like, I just started attracting like good guy after good guy after good guy. And I felt like I could just choose. Like I just had so many to choose from. Whereas before I was like, like flailing, like desperately seeking like one that I could possibly like entertain. Right. And so, yeah, a lot of this work is really kind of tapping into the energy that you're broadcasting out, because I do believe like people's intentions are good. Like they want the right things and they don't realize how they're putting themselves out there is actually coming back to them in the wrong way, like that they're not intending. Right. So, but yeah, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing that, because there's like so many people that are like, oh, well, I'm like taking a break from dating. And like my experience was like, no, I'm like out there every single day, like putting myself out there. And that's heartbreaking,
Mm-hmm. What do you have something to say? I feel like you have something to say.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you, Jared and I were talking about this before we interviewed you, but like, how do you like, I'm tired of hearing like, stop dating, take time for yourself. I feel like I've done that so much, like, and it's like, well, have you really done it? Have you really like, major? And it's like, I'm fine being single. I really am.
Yeah.
I like being single. I go travel solo. I don't mind being alone at all. But ultimately, my desire is to have a partner. So why would I stop trying? Or like you said, like putting myself out there. But I don't know. What are your views on that? Of like, it seems to be the kind of the thing in our culture is like, well, take time for you. You need to stop dating, kind of all of that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be very valuable for some people, right? Like if they are grieving from a past relationship and they haven't fully felt all their feelings or grieve that fully, right? Sometimes taking some time to themselves is really going to help them to process those feelings and then catapult them to the other side, right? For other people, it's like, no, I just can't figure it out, right? Like I don't need a break. I just like need new tools, right? And so I don't say that like you need to be completely healed in order to go and like put yourself out there, because a lot of times like how we change this, how we show up is through action, and how we learn is through action, and what we, how we learn what we want, what we don't want, like how to like change those neural pathways. Like it's when we get into those like scary times where shit gets real, right? And you have to start implementing those tools until you're more comfortable with it, right? And like even putting out, like for me, like my boundaries, like the first few times I did it, it was so scary. Like I felt like my insides were on fire, right? Like this guy's gonna run away. And then I did it and I just stood there and they were totally cool with it. And I'm like, okay, life moves on, right? Like this, there can be a different way. And it just sounds so simple, right? But yeah, like it's a big deal, right? And it takes kind of putting things into action to really like make the change, right? I always say like, when you're doing this work, like say no to all the things and men that are like against your vision, and say yes to all the things and men that like are going to be aligned with your vision, right? And it's like, start implementing those things, right? Like if I'm just hiding from dating, that's not aligned with my vision to find the one, right? But if like me not dating is like allows me to hide from a scary feeling that I don't want to confront, right? Like that's the problem. Like it depends on how people are kind of using that.
Right. And that makes sense, because you can't actually change the neuro pathway unless you're in, well, I mean, I'm sure you can, but like you have to see when you're in the situation, you have to like put it into fruition almost, right?
Yeah.
Like, and like you said, like the more you say, like something that I have done recently that I used to not really care about. I used to not really care when I slept with someone. It just, to me, it just doesn't seem like that big of a deal, where it's 2021. I'm a strong woman. I can decide when I want to sleep with someone or not. But then I had some situations where I got broken up with, like literally right after sleeping with them. And so I'm just trying right now, like I'm just setting boundaries, and I haven't like slept with anyone that, we've like made out or whatever. And it feels actually really nice.
Hey, good for you. That's exciting.
Yay.
It actually feels really nice, because I've realized like that I didn't trust that person anyway. Like I didn't trust them. And then the following day, I didn't have the same amount of anxiety, because I hadn't given them so much without like them earning my trust yet, ultimately. So I feel like that's a step in the right direction.
Well, and like, so what I want to validate for you, and like, I will say like, I'm not fixed. Like I still have a bunch of shit, right? Like
none of us are. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I
right?
thought you meant fixed as in like fixed.
like spayed or neutered. But like like validating what you're saying, like what I really relate to is I could have like 10, 15 years ago, like I could have told you all of my shit. Well, here's what happened when I was young, and here when I was a teenager, like my parents got divorced, and that was a really fucked up time. Like blah blah blah, right? And like I know like my drinking probably isn't good. Like I probably drink too much, and like like, and I knew it all up here, like in my thinky brain.
In your thinky brain?
Yes.
Okay.
It's all like thinky stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not been until like very recently that I feel like when your thinky brain is the problem, like that's what's really hard. Cause I would do the same thing that I feel like you're describing a little bit, where I'd be like, okay, I need to not do this pattern anymore. And then every new person that would come along, I would convince, I would be like, this time this is different because of this like one detail or whatever, because this person,
you rationalize it.
Yeah, has a different like backstory than the person before him, blah, blah, blah. But then like the pattern would play itself out again. I would be like, why did that was stupid to think it was different. It was obviously the same the whole time. And so for me, like that, to me, that's, I think what I hear you saying, Victoria, as like the body work and the inner child work and the energy work is like, I'm just now experiencing like feeling some stuff, feeling connected to myself on like a deeper level, like that's like not in the sort of like, my therapist calls it the manager, like where I'm always like, oh, like what do I need to do? How is this person reacting to me? And how am I going to adjust to how they're reacting to me? Like, and like what I need to do is like get out of the manager and just like into being myself authentically. And I think I got disconnected from myself so young that I don't know what that feels like or how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, and so I'm in agreement with both of you that like, you don't need to take a break from dating, and in fact, trying out some of these new tools and new ways of being and putting yourself out there is an important step. I will also say that for me, some of this feeling in a very grounded way, like I'm reconnecting to myself, didn't happen for me until I got off of the roller coaster of alcohol. And, like not completely, but for the most part. And, just, this, Leanna, in the past, like, month, 2 months or whatever, I've been off of the roller coaster of like dating in a way that like feels really good and really different to me than other times I've taken breaks before. Because other times I was taking breaks, it was still like a strategy of the manager to like, okay, I'm going to fix this thing and then I'm going to get back out there and it's going to work. And now I feel like I actually like the way I feel right now, focusing on myself, taking care of myself, nurturing myself. And I don't want to start like putting myself back out there and like whatever. And like, I know that that's not forever. So I just, all that to say, I think there's different ways to do it.
I think for like Victoria and Jared, like what you're saying, like for some people taking a break is the right thing. And who knows, like I may wake up tomorrow and be like, yeah, I think I do need a break. Like I'm still healing from some things, and I think I'm aware of that. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to talk really quickly, because I know we only have you for a little bit longer, but why is it so, going back to this like attracting unavailable men? Yeah, I want to speak on those men for a second. Why has no one pursued me harder than married men? Like I'm like, I have like, it's multiple married men have pursued me. And it is flattering, if I'm being honest. I mean, it is flattering to be pursued that hard. And the only other 2 times that I've been pursued that hard, other than by guys that I don't like, which now I probably need to keep talking to just to see, but were my 2 ex-boyfriends, because I'm so attracted to someone who just desires me and wants me, because that's my stuff is not feeling like that abandonment kind of, and I want security. And if they like me enough, they'll never leave me. They'll be there for me, kind of that thing. So let's speak to those men. Why are married men out here chasing other or married women? I'm sure it goes both ways. I'm going to say maybe more so married men, but I don't know. We don't have statistics in front of us. Why is that a thing? Like, why are they? I don't know.
I have a theory, but I want to hear Victoria first.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, going back to, I guess, my original response to your post, right? Unavailable people, right, kind of attract people that are unavailable, right? So there's definitely something in both of you that's attracting each other, right? Or a part of you, right? It might not be all of you. But I think it's a little bit different and more complicated when it is someone who is in the relationship versus the person who's single. So like, okay, well, first of all, I'm not an expert in infidelity, right? I'll leave that to like Esther Perel and all those gurus out there, right? Because infidelity is really, really complicated, right? It's really psychological. It's really complex. A lot of things go out or into it. But at the same time, right, like there could be a lot of things that are coming into play. So some of those things could be things like, you know, maybe they just like, they want a fantasy, right? Like they want to escape their life in some way, right? And, you know, like one of the like prime, I guess, like coaching tools or like theories in the coaching community is like, our thoughts and beliefs create our feelings, which create our actions, which create our results, right? So it's never really like the circumstance that you're in that's kind of creating whether you're fulfilled or happy or anything like that, right? It's really like the thoughts and beliefs that you're telling yourself. And so, you know, there are those people that are like, oh, like I'm really unhappy in my marriage. If it were just like a different person, or if it were just like a different circumstance, then I would be happy, right? And so for some of them, it's like, oh, like, okay, what if I just tried this person? Then it would work, right? And they just keep jumping from thing to thing. Like for some people, it's like, no, they're like so unhappy in their life that they just like want to break, right? They want a fantasy. They want to break from like experiencing the pain of being themselves and in their own world. For others, it's like, you know, there's those people that like always want a new challenge, right? To like feel important or feel wanted, right? And so, you know, if they're not getting that challenge anymore from like their wife or their husband, like they need a new challenge to like feel validated and important and wanted, right? And so they're always like constantly seeking that validation instead of like finding that or it in themselves, right? You know, or, you know, someone that like always wants the shiny new thing. And then like, you know, I do think like sometimes it's, you know, I've found like, and I know some people who, you know, they know that their current circumstance is unfulfilling and they realize maybe they're not aligned with their partner anymore. And they've kind of just like given up of like trying to make it better, but they stick around maybe for like their kids, right? And so then they rationalize that like, oh, well, it's okay that like I go ahead and do whatever on the side because I'm being a good whatever father and just like sticking around for the greater sake of whatever it is that they're trying to project out in the universe or like protect their kids from, right? I won't get into whether that's actually protecting them or not, right? But they rationalize like why that behavior is okay. So I really think there's like a whole host of things that goes into it. But yes, I do believe that, you know, it's they're not wholly like in integrity with like and aligned with their values and who they are and figuring their stuff out, right? And so they're going out and seeking that validation and whatever feelings that they're desperately wanting from in a marriage or whatever, like in the external world, right? So I know that wasn't a direct answer.
But... No, I think that's really helpful. I mean, I think it's interesting because the different instances that have happened to me, sometimes it's, I get, I'm just not happy and we've been, up and down for a long time, or, we're on different pages about having kids, or I'm really happy, but I'm like super attracted to you. This has never happened to me before. I think I'm a very like, outgoing. I present myself in a very attractive and warm and welcoming way. I'm fun, I'm loud, I'm confident. And so I think part of that is I'm just exciting. And so I think that if they're bored or something's going on and then then I'm exciting. And a lot of these situations have like, I'm not pursuing them. Like I just say hi. Yeah. I have a conversation with them. I'm just who I am. And then it comes to me. Yeah. And, maybe we can talk later about what I've done with all of that. But now I kind of want to like, why do you think that like, there is a part of that makes me feel special, that they would like risk everything for me, even though ultimately I know that is not true. Like you said, I'm the shiny object. I'm the grass is greener. If they actually lost the stability, they may not even want me anymore. Like I understand, like deep down, I know that that's not why, I guess. Why do you think, I guess this kind of goes back to me, maybe just being emotionally unavailable or giving off something that's emotionally unavailable, or giving off something that I do want to be pursued by unavailable men. I don't know what, help me.
No,
please.
I mean, I think, yeah, no, totally. Like, thank you for being so vulnerable, like, and open. Like, that's awesome, right? Like, you were totally uncovering all this stuff and doing all this work. So kudos to you. I mean, I think like, so two things come to mind. Like, number one, like, you can be attracted to like single people and married people just due to like your upbringing, your functioning, all your default stuff, right? Like we have attraction to a whole host of different people in the world, whether they're single or not, right? And so it could be a little bit of that. So it's almost like, okay, yeah, that one's married, like who cares, right? Like you're going to attract both, right? And like I'm not saying this is you because I don't know enough, but like sometimes a lot of my clients will like, so like focus on like this one like type of guy or pattern that's happening. And the more that they focus on it, like the more they see it and the more they attract it in their life. Right. Because like what we focus on expands. Right. And like, if we're just like looking for like, oh my God, only married guys go for me. Like what the heck, right? We're just going to see all the married guys. Right. And then all of a sudden, like they're in our purview and you're going to like pick that up. But also, oh my gosh, what was I going to say? Like, but also it's like there might also be a part of you that feels safe with them, right? So like if you're constantly like seeking that validation, and I'm not saying that you are, right? But if someone's like seeking the validation that they're good enough, that someone deeply wants them, right? Like perhaps there's certain people that you're like, well, the stakes are low, right? Like I feel safe with them. Like it doesn't feel risky, right? Like they're so unhappy. Like, of course they're going to love me because I'm amazing, right? And like, it feels safe because it's like, oh, well, like, yeah, like you almost, it's like, yeah, I got this. They're going to like me. Like you have so much confidence that you're like, like, you have it together, you're warm, you're like fun, you're like engaging, like you're a confident woman, like you're kind of a badass in like all other areas of your life. You're like, yeah, that person's going to like me, like something, like something's going to happen here. Right. But a lot of my clients like will feel that way with unavailable men, but then with men that are available, they're like, oh shit. Right. Like, they're risky. Like if they're available, I actually have to like put down all my walls and like be vulnerable and potentially risk it all and like still be hurt. Right. So now I'm like, I don't bring that same confidence. And I'm like, I don't know if they're going to like me back. Right. And it's just like bringing this like different level of energy and confidence. I don't know if that resonates
Yeah.
or like makes sense at all, but it's like a subtlety that it's like, yeah, like the stakes are low and like, of course this guy's gonna like me versus like, oh shoot, like I don't know if this guy's gonna like me. And so like you start getting like that, the insides of like, I don't know.
Well,
You know
and
what I mean?
I think that's spot on. And I think also it's like, I already know that I'm going to get hurt because I'm not going to be like, I already know
Yes.
that I'm not going to be number one, that I could get hurt, that I'm not going to get all of the attention. And so I'm ready for it. It's like I already, versus like with the guy that like my ex-boyfriend, who I was only together with for 6 months, but spent months trying to get over. That was so gut wrenching.
Mm-hmm.
So why would I do that again? When
Exactly.
like I can just be the girlfriend of this guy who's like in another relationship, and that's way easier. That's kind of like, I'm not saying I want to do that or will do that, but that's kind of like where it's like, yeah, you're right. It's like, I definitely have a guard up.
And some people like find themselves in the situation too. Like, they're still entertaining available men, but they're like, oh, okay, here's this unavailable man. It's like, oh, poor them. They're so unhappy. Like, I'm just going to text with them, or I'm just going to talk to them. Like, because I'm bored, I don't have anything. Like, I'll still look for other guys, but like, okay, I have some time. Like, oh, okay, like I'll just like engage. And then all of a sudden, like you actually develop feelings for them, right? And then you find yourself in this situation. But it's like what you were saying. You're like, okay, I already know this isn't going to work. So like, it's not scary. I can just like have fun and engage and like feel the validation that I'm seeking while I look for other men. Mm-hmm. But really, like your energy is being trapped into that situation, and it's taking away from the energy that you could be putting into guys that are actually available. And that's what I see, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize it's like, a one sum one sum game, right? Like there's only so much energy that can go around. And like, it's like, that's another block that's really like getting in your way.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
I feel like you've been sort of won over to dating coaching again after sort of swearing it off. Is that true?
Maybe. I think Victoria, I still believe in coaching programs. I had well, I guess our listeners know about it, but I had a experience of, I got really close with my coach, and then we had kind of a falling out. And so it was a little like it just tainted the whole process for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also like you're not in a place that you would want to be after the coaching program, which like I did like a therapy retreat like 6 years ago, and I like paid a ton of money, and I was like, this is it. Like this is going to finally, like I'm investing big. I'm pushing all my chips into the middle, and this is going to turn it all around. And it didn't.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, fuck this place. Right. It's everything that like gives me the same vibe and whatever.
But I totally believe in dating coaching programs. When I did it, there was other women in the program, and I'm still friends with some of the other people that did that program with that coach, and they're doing awesome. And so it's like, for some reason I'm not, but that's okay. Victoria's here to help me.
No,
you did a full on like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. You did like a full on one of those. Well, and like one of the things that I dig about what you're sharing with us today, Victoria, is like really that focus on energy and even like the embodied parts of this, right? Because I think there's a lot of programs and books and coaches that sort of stay in this place of like, well, just tell yourself this, and then that's the answer, right? And what I hear you saying, which I appreciate, is that it's like deeper than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I might have said this before, but like that's why like a lot of it, like it didn't work for me doing this on my own. Like I read all the books, right? It was like intellectually, like you're saying, like I knew all the stuff I was doing wrong. I knew kind of what I had to do, but it wasn't like like the results still weren't coming to me, right? Until I did this deep work. And I feel like it's so valuable to have someone on the other side that can see the things that you can't see. Like we can't see it all, right? We have our blind spots. And so that coach, right, can really kind of go through the experiences that you've been having and really dig deep into like what's actually going on and get that last like 5 or 10%. And like, I totally like understand like what you're saying about coaching or therapists. Like I started with a therapist that I never had done therapy before. So what she gave me was I just thought was good. And then I got like a really amazing therapist and I was like, oh my God, there's such a big difference in like quality or just like techniques, right? That might work for someone and not, right?
Absolutely.
And like, it's the same way with coaching, right? And so a lot of my mentors that actually taught me this work are not only coaches, but they're also therapists, right? And like they have dealt with like this trauma stuff for, decades. And so I've really kind of adapted kind of modalities and tools kind of from both worlds to really integrate that work such that it's not like just staying up in your head, but it's really like incorporating the whole body and all of that. So yeah,
definitely. Well, Victoria, thank you so much for coming on. We want our listeners to come flood your page and reach out to you. And I know we have some female listeners who like would benefit from doing your program. So tell us all the stuff.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. So if people want to work with me, I do a 3-month coaching program where they work one-on-one with me. They can go ahead and find me on Instagram at my handle is Victoria Miretti. That's Miretti. And they can also get more information on my website. So that's just victoriamiretti.com.
Love it. Yay. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you, Victoria. We appreciate you.
Oh my God. Amazing. Thanks guys. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Bye.
Bye.